Hello, buddies, your favorite West Virginia in space here, and I got a lot of RPG books for Christmas, and I'm quite happy with them, but one of them I got was Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, which had a surprising feature in it that I did not know about, and this is quite weird because I'm, a big fan of D&D 5e, but I never knew this mechanic or system, whatever you want to call it, existed. The mechanic is group patrons. Now, I did do some research, and some people have talked about it, but this mechanic has gone almost completely forgotten by many people, which I think is a shame, as it has a lot of potential to be used in interesting ways. As I just think it's quite interesting. So, how about we start and get into why I think it's so interesting? Now, of course, what is a group patron and what does it do mechanically? Well, it's not actually related to warlocks directly, although you could probably link it to. Rather, it's simply the idea that there is a patron or an individual, or more broadly a faction, that all your characters work for, and by working for them, you gain certain benefits and they send you on certain missions, that kind of thing. It's not like super mechanically strict, not like it has like exact systems for everything, as it's kind of broad, but it has a lot of potential. Now, the first basic mechanic that being part of a group patron simply gives you by default, no matter which one you are, is it gives you, if you and an ally are both part of the same group patron, that kind of deal, you can, for once per long rest, give that person advantage on a roll. Now, this, once again, you can only give to someone else. It's meant to symbolize like teamwork and that kind of thing, and there's a few other stipulations to it, but it's quite an interesting and powerful mechanic. The ability to just give advantage, as long as you can communicate with the individual, is pretty good. It's not broken because it's only once a long rest, and you all have to be part of the same patron thing to work, but I think it's a solid mechanic that shouldn't be underutilized. It can really save you in clutch situations, or just help you on silly rolls. However, each patron gives you certain different bonuses. Now, the ones listed in the book, / the ones given, are, in rough order, Academy, Ancient Being, Aristocrat, Crime Syndicate, Guild, Military Force, Religious Order, and Sovereign. And although it does give, of course, you could easily make your own, and each one gives you a certain set of unique benefits for being part of it. Stuff like living accommodations, discount on certain goods, and then you got some more of the exotic ones, like being able to get supernatural boons at certain levels, or even be able to learn one skill, which is pretty big because, it's kind of hard to learn skills or certain supernatural abilities in the game without doing certain things, and this is a pretty good way to get some of them. So overall, some of the abilities aren't quite as good. The listed ones and some of the patrons are definitely not as good as others in my opinion, but all pretty interesting, and they give a lot of potential for a certain group, especially if you all want to play like a mercenary campaign or a thieves guild, or you're part of a rebellion or something. Like, these give you some solid bonuses and thematic help to help represent certain things. And I think it helps the GM a lot too, as it gives you an idea of what being a part of these groups should look like. But let's get into that. Now, from a more narrative perspective, I think it is important to remember that if your players are part of a group patron thing, then they, by their nature, you should have it be a big deal in the story, a major aspect, if you will. Now, the reason I say is because there are backgrounds like Guild Artisan or Criminal or the Thieves Guild kind of thing that has been the player's handbook, but I think if you pick those for your character, you may want them to be a big deal for your character, but it's just as likely that you just want that to have you be your background to only come up occasionally. I think picking as a group patron, either as the player or the GM, implies that this should be a relatively central aspect of the campaign. And of course, you don't have to start out with it. You could easily join up or break away from some. There's total potential there. Like, you start out the campaign in a military, as a military patron kind of deal, but do you break away at certain points? If you break rank, do you lose that completely? Probably. Or do you transition to a different part if you become, like, instead of being part of the military, now you're working directly with the aristocracy? There's stuff you can do with that, and adding it into a campaign can add tons of flavor. And the missions the group patron suggests, although not all suitable for all campaigns, I think it gives some good direction of where to go and what to do sometimes. And of course, just because there are a certain list of what they give, what a group patron might give, doesn't mean you have to follow them as the GM. You can simply use that as an excuse to give certain objectives, give certain things and missions. And having a group patron be this more defined thing like guild member or criminal mastermind or working for this or that, it helps give your players it helps set the theme. This isn't just, I'm working for insert boss who has money and is powerful. It's that I am working for insert thing doing insert thing. Okay, that sounds really bad when I say it like that, but you know what I mean. And I think it's very interesting. And you could do tons of dynamic switches. Like, I can totally imagine almost Dawn of War 2 campaign, where it's like you start out as part of this group attacking, but then you learn that your boss is actually super corrupt and evil and working with the bad guys, and then you have to break away. So now, instead of being part of a military company, you're now part of like a mercenary band or a grand band of criminals or rebellion or that kind of thing, and you have to overthrow your previous boss. Like, that's kind of a more structured campaign, but there's a ton of stuff you can do. And once again, the narrative benefits of how you can tie things in, like guild artisans having access to certain magical items or secrets, or thieves guilds plotting downfalls of kingdoms or dark deals, and like how all these things can interact in a group, I think are very interesting. And of course, if for nothing else, then you can use flavors for NPCs or bad guys as well. Now granted, of course, these have always existed, but having some idea of, even just a tiny peek into what a member of this group could look like, I think gives some help and can really be an interesting aspect. And overall, it's not like the best thing ever. I don't think it will change 5e, but I think it's a fascinating thing that has been mostly forgotten by the player base. Like, 5e talks just never bring this up. It's just like forgotten idea or mechanic, which I think is sad. At the very least, I think it's interesting, and I'll definitely plan to maybe use it in future games for any players listening. But overall, that's just my thoughts. Do you think the group patron system is good? You think it's bad? You think it could be reworked? Or what else do you think about it? Like, any personal opinion you have, just please put it down in the comments. Please like, comment, subscribe if you liked the video, and I'll see you all next time. Yeah. Hey, why don't you hit that sub button? You're gonna become a subscribble. Get to see my content quicker. Wouldn't that be nice? I bet so.